And welcome to another edition of On the Spot. My name is Ronnie Wiley. To my left is CHS varsity basketball coach Kerry Brown. Now, normally you're on the sports show where we talk about sports, but today we're putting you on the spot to talk about Kerry Brown.
Like I told you before, this 30-minute program, we may not have 30 minutes worth of material.
That's all right. That's all right. If we have to cut it off short, we have to cut it off short. But, Kerry, you've been here now 13. You just completed your 13th season coaching here at CHS. But before we get into, what brought you here and how long you've been here, why you love it here, and all things about Kerry Brown and CHS, let's talk about Kerry Brown. Where are you originally from?
Well, I'm originally from a little town called Kewanna, Indiana, in northern Indiana.
Kewanna?
Kewanna. It's between metropolises of Winnemac and Rochester. Grew up on a farm, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and I was the third of the 3 boys. And, I guess because of I had a younger sister, but I was the second youngest in our family. But I guess wasn't going to farm, and my teachers and coaches had a real influence and impact on me, and that kind of is what steered me in the direction of teaching and coaching.
So, and one thing that impressed me about you was you had my son one year, and I remember you called me up because you two kind of bumped heads a little bit, and he had said something to you about, well, I don't care, and you're like, I care about your education. And I remember I told Pam when she was the athletic director, I was like, he's a teacher first before a coach. So going back to your teachers and coaches and influences, who were they and what did they instill in you?
Well, to follow up on what you said, I tell the kids like day one of class that I do care about them and as well as basketball players. And I think that's first and foremost, more important than anything our kids learn in U.S. history, which is what I teach right now. I think it's important that we're good character people and end up being good citizens. And to me, that's as important, more important than whether they learn who all the presidents and states and all that stuff is. But I kind of remember that conversation with your son. I've probably had that a few times with other kids over the years, and I'm glad you didn't hold that against me.
No, not at all. I loved it. I loved that you
kids
cared
come back.
To call me.
Well, I've had kids, that come back afterwards, and they're like, apologetic. Hey, sorry, I was, the way I was. But we were all there at one point in time in our career, so we're just trying to help them get through that. Probably, I remember all my elementary teachers, as probably most of us do, but my 6th grade teacher was also a basketball coach and a male, which aren't very many male elementary teachers. And then I had a middle school PE teacher that was going to take me to basketball camp at Indiana University. I got mono and couldn't go, but I still remembered that opportunity that, he was going to go out of his way to haul me down there. And, that was quite a trip from northern Indiana, but it's a trip from here. And then as I got into high school, probably my freshman basketball coach, and he was also a social studies teacher, and my football coach, they were very impressionable upon me, and that kind of set me on the path to where, I wanted to go professionally in terms of teaching and coaching. I married an educator. My wife was a teacher and an administrator. My stepdaughter's a teacher. My son-in-law is a teacher and a coach, so seems like it runs in the family a little bit. My youngest sister's actually a school teacher as well. So,
and your other brothers and sisters, did they get into sports as much as you did?
Probably not as much as me. They both played basketball. My brother that's a year older than me gave it up his junior year. My oldest brother, I don't want to say he didn't play his freshman, sophomore, but then he played his junior and senior year. Both of my sisters, my oldest sister played basketball all the way through, and then my youngest sister, I think she was in flags or something. I don't know. Not taking back, she did play basketball as well. But she was 3 or 4 years younger than I was going through school. But yeah, and I'll say this, my parents never ever, they were never overboard. My mom's more overboard now. As the mom of a coach than she was as me playing. I never heard a word from them at home, at the games. They were supportive. I had a goal outside. Then when we built our new barn, I had a goal in the brand new barn, a brand new goal. It was, it's top of the line, all that good stuff. But, there was never any pressure from home. Or ever any, I never went home and discussed games with my dad or any of that kind of stuff.
And so I guess now as a coach, since your parents didn't really talk to the coaches or anything, I'm sure it's different for you as a coach to hear the parents kind of get in your ear about, why isn't little boy, Johnny playing or whatever?
Well, there were probably other parents that were that way even back then.
Right.
It just wasn't how my parents were.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, and I think that we have good kids, but it just wasn't as probably prevalent as it is today, where parents are so much more a part of it. There was no AAU.
Right.
Even things like camp right now.
Right.
When I went to camp, they dropped you off. I went to Notre Dame and they dropped you off. I forget what other camp it was, but they dropped you off and they went home for the week and you stayed for the week and you never saw them. Today, when we have camp, the parents hang around for a day or 2 days, or when we have our youth camp, we provide seating because we know a lot of the parents want to be there, especially during when we're playing games and things like that. But it's just a different time, and parents are probably more involved now than they were back in the days when I was going through, and parents, when I was going through, were probably more involved, although it doesn't seem like very much than the parents were of previous generations.
Yeah. So you played pretty much every sport, correct?
I played baseball when I was young. The school I went to through 8th grade did not have football. And then I transferred, went to a school that was a little bit bigger, and they had football. So my brother and I went out for that for the first time. You talk about ducks out of water. And I was a good athlete and ended up being a really good football player. I was probably a better football player than basketball player, actually. But I loved basketball more. And so I played football, basketball, baseball. Tried to run track my freshman year, but the running without a ball being involved was a problem, so I gave that up.
Yeah, I couldn't run. If I knew that I was going to have a sumo wrestling body, I would have probably gotten to that earlier on when I was a kid. But I remember you and I had a conversation outside the press box, standing out there, and you were talking about the football press box, and you were talking about some sort of package, and I was like, dude, is there a sport that you don't know about? You were talking about a defensive package, and I was amazed. So basketball stood out to you as your favorite sport?
Yeah, I just remember going to the games, places that nobody's heard of, Lighters Ford and Aubanabi and Monterey, and watching our high school team play back then. We had for a small school, we had a really good team. Two of the guys went to Valdosta State, which is interesting because Larry Miller from Connersville was down there.
Was he? Okay. Yeah.
At the same time.
Wow.
And then one of them went and played professionally over in France. And so those were the guys that I got to watch when I first was taken to the games by my dad and my aunt and uncle, and then we always stopped at my aunt and uncle's house. It seemed like at 8 coming home, so it was just a great experience. Yeah. And that was probably when I fell in love with the game of basketball, was going and watching those first teams at Kiwanis High School, the Kiwanis Indians. But yeah, very fond memories, and from there it just continued to grow.
Continued to grow, learning the game, playing the game. When did you decide, I think I want to coach? I think I want to get into coaching.
Probably my junior, senior year of high school, when I was thinking about, what I was going to do and where I was going to go. And my high school coach was a big influence. His name was Dwayne Galbraith, and had the utmost respect for him. But probably about that time. And then my freshman coach, who's actually the coach at Pike right now, Bill Zick, the freshman coach at that time, took me and another boy over to Manchester College, and introduced us to the coaching staff, et cetera. He'd graduated from there. That's Bill Zick, who's the coach at Pike right now. And so again, I had another coach looking out for me, hauling us around, trying to do good by it. So I think that's why, as coaches and teachers, we try to give back, because people have done things for us, and we're just trying to emulate what those other people have done and pay it forward. But just grew, loved the game, knew I wanted to probably become teacher and coach junior, senior year. And to be honest, in the beginning, it was coaching 1 and teaching 2. But somewhere along the line, I figured out and realized that the teaching part was more important than the coaching part. And I spend a great amount of time preparing for both of them.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me how you can juggle both. Of course, obviously basketball, they say only takes up a certain amount of time during the season, but you're in constant preparation for the season, even in the off season.
We take some mini vacations, take some short times period off, but for the most part, as a teacher and a coach, for me, it's year round. It's not for the kids. I work every Sunday. I don't say that to impress anybody, but I work hard. I prepare social studies and basketball just about every Sunday during the school year. In the summer, I take my Sundays off and maybe go play golf.
Sure.
That's why I'm such a poor golfer. But and you know, the week Monday through Saturday, it is what it is. I go to work every morning at 6, and when the day's over because practice is over or scouting's over or the game's over or watching and studying the game, which sometimes runs into, you know, on Fridays and Saturdays into midnight, 1 o'clock, whatever. The day's over when it's over. And I think, you know, I learned, I hope, my work ethic from my dad and then the teachers and coaches I've been around.
So you're getting out of high school, going to, where'd you go to college at?
I started out at Manchester, and that's when I first learned about 6-footers are a dime a dozen. Right. And I got cut. Talk about a rude awakening. I had lettered 3 years in high school, thought I was pretty good, and found out that, you know, 6-footers are a dime a dozen. So then I finished out at Ball State, graduated in 1985.
So if you got to cut a kid, you know how it feels.
I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
It's not good.
No, it's got to be the hardest thing to tell a kid. That,
yeah,
you know.
it is. That's the worst part of coaching is going through the cut process, and I just try to be as honest and open with them and their parents as I can be. And, you know, sometimes they say honesty is the best policy, but not everybody wants to hear that.
Right, exactly, absolutely. So you got cut, and did you immediately think, okay, right then I'm going to just start coaching?
I did. I actually did. I started helping the Manchester middle school team because, again, I was pursuing a teaching and a coaching career. When I went to college, playing ball was just going to be a fun part of that. I thought so. I thought that's what I needed to do. So my freshman year at Manchester, I helped coach the middle school team at Manchester Middle School.
One of the things that, you know, Fran and I have talked about it, me and the kids have talked about, is that I don't care if the Spartans are up 40 or down 40. That's Kerry. The kid makes a slam dunk, and I'm like, I'm coming out of my seat. And your comments, did you learn that back then? Were you like that back then? Or is this a maturity over time? I
think it's maturity. I would say that probably referees didn't like to work for Coach Brown when he was younger, just getting started. And, you know, just over time, got smarter and got more mature. And the other part of that is then I think the kids feed off of whatever you're doing. And if I'm complaining to the officials, letting that be a distraction or disruption, then I think the kids will emulate that, and they're going to be complaining and whining to the officials, and so that's going to be a distraction. And we always talk about, you know, controlling the controllables. Well, we can control our attitude, we can control our effort. We can't control the people in the stands, and we can't control the referees. They're going to call what they're going to call. So if we're going to truly control the controllables, that's going to be our attitude and our effort.
Yep, absolutely. So you coach the middle school kids. And you're still a teenager at this point.
Yeah, I was, I was 17 when I graduated from high school, so probably was 18, maybe I turned 18. I don't even know if I'd turned 18 yet at 17. Probably not. I probably turned 18 then at the end of my freshman year in college, so 17 was coaching the kids that were 12, 13, 14.
Yeah, so
I was helping.
Oh, you were helping. So you're learning how to coach when did you get your first maybe assistant coaching job where you felt like, oh man, I'm belonging?
When I graduated in '85 from Ball State, I got hired in the Rushville School Corporation, Rush County Schools, and I taught at the middle school, Milroy Middle School, and coached there. But probably I would say that, I've always tried to take from all the people that I've worked for, but I would say the first real experiences that were greatly beneficial to me, I started going down to Nashville, Tennessee, and working basketball camps down there for a guy named Don Meyer. If you Google him, he's Hall of Fame coach. He's the guy that had the automobile accident, and when they took him in for that surgery, it's up to they discovered he had cancer, so he won the Jimmy Valvano Award, the V Award one year. Just if you Google him, he's in the Hall of Fame, or will be if he's not already. So, but I was going down working his camps, and I think they were the most highly attended camps in the nation at that time. I go down there about 6 years in a row. Think that's probably when I found out a lot that helped me professionally as a coach about, how you needed to do things, and helped me form and shape my philosophy. And then there's been a number of other people that I've sought out as mentors as well that have benefited me, but that was probably one of the best professional experiences that I've ever had.
So you go down there and you're still a kid? I mean,
I'm young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just out of college, and you're assisting at Rushville at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was an assistant for 15 years over there. Back in the old days, there was paying your dues and working your way up. And I was a middle school coach, freshman coach, JV coach, varsity assistant, and then finally, got my opportunity as the varsity assistant. It doesn't seem like it's just different dynamics. Most of the coaches now are not teachers.
Right. Yeah,
and
exactly.
a lot of the assistant coaches don't want to be head coaches. They just want to, fill that role. So it is a different than it was back when I was first coming up. Usually, you had to get your feet wet and be an assistant, and then you got your chance. Now there's a lot of guys that get hired at all levels with no previous coaching experience at all.
Yeah, yeah. So, but when you got your first job, and I got to remember, I get it flipped sometime. Rushville was your first, and then South Dearborn?
I was at Rushville for about 20 years, 6 of that as a head coach. Then I went to Edinburgh 1 year as an athletic director.
Okay.
But I knew I still wanted to coach.
At Edinburgh?
No, just the athletic director. And then I was at South Dearborn for 2 years. And then I got a call when this job opened up. One of the school board members knew a good friend of mine that helped me coach that was from Connersville, actually, Trent Gray. And they remembered when I was at Rushville, we'd come over here and beat Matt Howard a couple times on this floor. We'd won 3 sectionals in a row. So they, long story short, he reached out to him. Trent reached out to me and wanted to know if I'd be interested when this job opened up. And I came and applied and got the job. And it was just good getting back close this way. Plus, my family's in northern Indiana. My wife's mom was over in Rush County. So it was a good move for a number of different reasons. And it's been a great move for me professionally and from a basketball standpoint.
We're all blessed to have you.
Well, thank you.
So when you got your first job, because to me this is your best job, but I'm sure your first job still is very when you applied for the Rushville head coaching job, your first one, did you think you'd get it, or did you have an idea that I think I have a good chance? I mean, obviously you feel like you have a good chance if you're going to apply. Actually,
the first time I applied for the job, I didn't get it. When I was a freshman coach and a JV coach, and the jobs came open. They hired other people, which was fine. I thought both of those guys I learned and took things from.
Yeah.
Talking about Jerry Craig and Kendall Wildy were the guys that were coming in there. I'm trying to think how that. And then Jerry got out, and that was when the job finally fell to me, if you will. And we did a good job. Had good people. Had good assistants there. I've had good assistants here. And obviously, you have to have good players if you're going to win and be successful. And we had good players there, good players here, and they make us look good as coaches. But I'm not foolish enough to know that if I don't have good help with the assistants and we don't have good players, I'm not going to do anything individually. And we always talk about we and us instead of I and me. And I hope I'm never an I or me person.
Right. Oh no, I wouldn't. Somebody told me you were an I person, I'd say no. So you took a Rushville team of I think you finished 7-15. So you may have started off 5-14 or whatever, but you won a sectional with a 7-15 team.
We were 4-16 going into the sectional, and we ended up 8-17. We won 4 games after the tournament started. I guess it's still a record for most wins in the tournament, defeating teams that have beat you during the season. There's a number of teams that have done it, like won 3 games, but that team won 4. And that was a great lesson for me as a coach as well, because figuring out, never giving up. And our kids didn't. And if they had, being 4-16, we would have lost game 1 of the sectional, but they weren't ready for the season to be over with. That was an important lesson for me to learn as a coach. And we beat, it was Greensburg, Shelbyville, and Whiteland in the sectional. We beat Pendleton in the regional first game.
Wow.
And then we finally got beat by Bishop Chatard in the championship game. They went on to win the state championship that year in 3A. But yeah, that was memorable, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, unbelievable. And you beat all 4 teams that had already beat you previously?
Yeah, and by, I want to say it was all 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 points. None of them were like a one-possession game.
Yeah.
So we probably had that as an advantage when we played them in the sectional. They might have been looking by us a little bit to the next game. And we snuck up on some people and just, you get that momentum going. And probably like all the St. Peter's team this
Right, yeah,
year in the NCAA tournament. It was a lot like that.
Yeah.
But then we finally ran into someone that was a buzzsaw, and there was nothing we could do.
Yeah, so you had 3 championship or sectional titles there. You decided to say, I need to move on. Did you feel like you needed to move on from Rushville?
No, I knew I still wanted to coach, but things had not worked out. So I decided that I would go to Edinburgh and take that athletic director job for a year, still knowing that I thought I wanted to coach, but that year off made me realize that I still wanted to. Yeah. And I enjoyed my year at Edinburgh. It was very satisfying. I felt like, I learned a lot of things, and there were good people down there. So it's not that I disliked what I was doing, it's just that I still thought I wanted to coach.
And now you had that 1-year experience with what Duncan does.
Yeah, well, I was assistant AD at Rushville for a couple of years, but it's different. Just like the head coach and the assistant coach, moving overseas a little bit different. Well, when you're the AD versus the assistant AD, you stay till the end, and there's more responsibilities. But I did enjoy that experience. But then the South Dearborn job opened up, and they were kind of familiar with me too from being at Rushville, and the principal down there was an old basketball coach and came from a basketball family, and so we hit it off, and I went down there for a couple of years, and then this job opened up. So
when this job opened up, you mentioned a friend of yours who you knew, and obviously you'd played at the Bowl many times, beaten Matt, and we'll forgive you for that now that you're our coach. And there are jobs I think that we all look forward to and think, man, I really want. How much did you want this job when you applied for it?
Well, to me, this is one of the premier jobs in the state of Indiana. I don't know if it's as a destination spot like it might have been back when Basil and Myron Dickerson were here. There had been a couple of losing seasons, the last couple, but Matt Howard was here. You had still some really good players and really good teams that came through here, but I guess I was fortunate that there was a couple of down years, and so I don't know. I'm not going to say the expectations were down because this is a rabid, crazy community for their basketball. And I was just talking with someone yesterday about, our crowds travel and we have more people at road games than the home teams do. I was just at an all-star game yesterday, and I was sharing that sentiment with those coaches there. And so I guess this was a job that was coveted by me, but I don't know that, it would be coveted by everybody, and it's been a great move for me and my family personally.
Oh, and we've enjoyed having you. I did some games prior when Rodney was still here, Coach Klein, and then Fred and I picked up your first year, so we kind of followed you. We've been around your whole time, and one thing I've always been impressed by you is that people always have, Kerry Brown is a slow offense, but I think you coach to the talent of the team. I think you have your system, but you coach to the talent of the team. This was a fast team this year. Yeah,
and I would just say this, over the years, we've been successful, I think, because of a couple of things. And one of them is shot selection. The other one's we guard people. We try to guard people. And then we play hard. And we're somewhat physical at times. So going back to playing slow, we'll play as fast or as slow as we need to get a great shot and a great possession. And credit to our kids, they understand that. And again, this I thought was something that was necessary for us, and that's what we emphasize: sharing the basketball, being unselfish, taking great shots, and guarding people. Those are the two things that we emphasize the most in our program. And over the years, if you watched us, you'd say, they play pretty good defense, and they share the basketball, and they take pretty good shots compared to maybe some other people or teams. And I just think it's a necessary component. If you're not as athletic, you're not as talented as the other people, it's not as, you just can't run up down the floor and take any old shot in the game. And our kids have bought into that, and we've had some success because of it. Talking about that, ball control,
again, your defense is top notch. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen you guys have a bad defensive performance. Maybe the Lawrence North game, 2-3 years ago when they were just cleaning everybody.
Or the fourth quarter of our last game, which is fresh in all of our minds. We didn't play very good defense there.
I wasn't going to talk about that.
That's all right. That serves as motivation.
And that's it, because again, I've watched you over the years, and the thing that I'm impressed with you the most is that, again, we call it the Kerry Brown Scowl. You're just as calm as can be. Your kids know what to do and when to do it at all times. They have the utmost respect for you. How do you? That's got to stay with you, that loss.
But it does. There's a couple of them that sting. But that you talk about just my demeanor, but it's next play mentality. Yeah. Whether you do something good or something bad, there's always another play. And I'll give you a real recent example of that. We're at New Pal this year. We make a shot and start celebrating, think the game's over with, and we have a chance to lose the game.
Yeah, I know.
I always tell our kids, when you point a finger at someone else, there's three of them pointing back at you. So I'm not blaming anybody, because if I would have done a better job of going through that situation late in the game, and we would have had more reps and more practice, then maybe it doesn't play out that way. But we were fortunate and lucky to win that game when the young man missed in the free throw.
You iced him.
Same thing happened in the state tournament, the 1A game, North Davies and Lafayette Central Catholic. The guy's on the line, and the coach takes a timeout and freezes him. Yeah. But again, we'd been in a position, and you can't get too high and you can't get too low.
Yeah. Well, the first loss of the season, and this stands out to me of anything of the season, was playing Monroe Central. And we get off to a 10-2 run, start the game, and Lucas had this dunk that was just an amazing way that I didn't think he was going to dunk it, and he did, and we're up 10-2, and I thought, this game's over. They went on like a 15-0 run after that, and it was like it was over. I mean, they used that as a motivation. You're right, the next play.
Good or bad, whatever you did, it's always about the next play, and being where your feet are, and not being somewhere else. And I think if as players they learn to do those things, I think it can only benefit them versus getting too high after a win or too low after a loss. Certainly there are losses that sting more than others, but I think that adversity is what ultimately helps make you able to handle tough situations later on, whether it's as a player, as a student, or as a husband later on in life. And, we all go through a little bit of adversity. It's how we handle it.
Well, when I was in sixth grade, over in West Carrollton, Ohio, my football team, our Pee Wee football team, the Lions Club lost to the Moose 6-0, and we hadn't given up a point all season. They didn't either. We lost, and we were crying. I still cry to this day.
And you still remember that too.
Oh, I still remember that.
Still
Absolutely.
hangs on.
Yeah. No matter what it is, you still remember those losses. It's like,
Been there and done that.
Yeah, let's move on to something else. So, again, been here 13 years. Hopefully another 13 years or to whenever you decide to hang it up, because I really believe you're good for this program is solid. And when you got here, what changes did you have to make to implement nothing against Rodney, but you have to come up with your own style, with your own program.
Again, the things that we emphasize is shot selection and guarding. I tell you, I sought out Coach Teagle, who was at Jay County at that time, because I thought he was in a similar situation where he was coaching at a small 4A and had to beat teams with more talent, more athleticism. So that's kind of who I've patterned what we do after. And I was kind of that way at Rushville and South Dearborn, but I actually sought him out. I've been to his practices, went up and picked his brain, and I visited him since then, and I give him a lot of credit for what we do. And then, what we do is what Carmel does, what Marion University does, because of Coach Hetty and Coach Osborne there. They did such a great job at it. I think that's what we try to do, is copy and emulate those people who are successful as best we can. But they do the same thing. They play the same type of defense we do. They value the basketball. They encourage great shot selection. And those are the same things that we're trying to do at Connersville, is that they're doing at those very successful programs.
Real quick before we close up here, I'm sure you're in, and you got your finger in everything as far as the youth pro. Any kids to watch for in the future that you in your younger program?
I think if I have to say this, I think the kids that are late bloomers are the ones you really want as a basketball coach, because so many times we see kids that have already arrived when they're young, and then they a lot of it's physical maturity, and they don't keep developing. So what I'm always looking for is those kids that maybe haven't completely developed when they're younger, because I can see the future potential in some of those types of kids, but we're not sure who they are yet.
Yeah, that's right.
We want to keep them all when they're young, and then it'll figure itself out by the time they get to sophomore, juniors, and seniors.
We made it 30 minutes. And we could probably go 30 more. Kerry Brown, Coach Kerry Brown. God bless you, buddy. Thank you very much. We'll see you in November, I guess.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you next month on The Spot.